we go. Welcome back, guys. Today I have another new video for you. We're going to be restoring this Mattock. Not sure how old it is, but we got it from an antique shop nearby. But we just got a handle from the Ace Hardware, so we'll be restoring that. So stay tuned for us restoring that. And then I got Doug here. He's willing to help me because I'm not very good at restoring stuff. I don't know much about it, but he knows a lot. And like I said, eventually we're gonna make a video of his whole basement shop he's got down here. It's awesome. He has like stuff from 1910s that he's restored. He has a lathe back here, as you can see. I don't know if you can see, it's kind of far back, but everything's kind of organized. But this thing has a lot of background to it that we're gonna tell you about in the next video. So stay tuned for that, and we're gonna get back to it.
So here we're trying to restore this old Mattock, which looks to me like it's maybe from the could be the 40s, could be the 50s. So we're going to try to make it look as aesthetically good, still keep some of its patina, but clean it up. And Nick wants to use it, so we're going to fix it up, fix the handle, take the old handle off. Try to make it look as original as possible, but make it usable. So, okay, you got to take these nails out. We're gonna have to cut these guys off. Okay, so I'm gonna sand the heads of these nails off. Okay. More than one way to do it, but since I've got this belt sander, I'm just gonna hit the heads of these nails off so we can get the handle off. Safety glasses. We got the heads off. It's clear to knock this out.
Perfect.
Yeah. That's at least 50 years old. Now we're going to go over to the wire wheel and clean up some of this rust.
So now Doug is just sanding down some of the parts that we couldn't really get on the, what is that, the grinder?
Yes, wire wheel.
The wire wheel.
I've got to use a hand wire brush.
Yep. So we found some interesting stuff about it too. Like I said, I got this at like an antique store for like 10 bucks. And after we grinded some of it down, we saw right here, I don't know if you can read it or not. It says Germany. So it's pretty cool.
Right. So it's actually a very good high quality steel, because Germans use a very good quality of steel. Most all of their products have good steel, which is really neat that we're restoring this. You know, it was sitting in somebody's garage or in their barn. And then Nick got it for a very reasonable price. And now we're going to restore it so that it's going to be used again. It's going to be just as good as this, as if it were new.
Brand new, yep. So I'm excited. We still got a little bit more things to do. So what do you think we're going to do next, Doug?
We can probably put the handle on, and also what we're going to do is we're going to warm this up and put some beeswax on it, and that will give it a good patina. It'll protect it from getting rusty. If you want to use it for display, it'll just make it look good. And if you're going to use it outside, it'll protect it from getting as rusty. Just have to keep it dry after it gets wet.
Okay.
And then put the hickory handle on. Get that fitted right. And then it'll be... I like to use WD-40 on labels after you take the labels off. It takes the adhesive off.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's good. So you learned something.
So the little residue of it, sometimes you have to let it sit on there for a few minutes. Another use for WD-40.
Yeah. So you think like you could sand it down and stain it, but I guess if you wanted it darker, you know.
Yes, but you'd have to take off the
coat.
Yeah, well, I think there's a polyurethane on it. So if you wanted it to take a stain, you'd have to take the coating off the polyurethane, and then it would allow you to. The grain would allow it to take a stain.
Right.
So I mean that's not that big of a deal.
No.
If you want to do that, it would look good.
Yeah, no, we don't have to do that.
Okay.
I just want it to be usable.
Or you can sand it off and get that urethane off by sanding it too. So with that sander, we could do that. So
what do you think?
It's an option.
I guess we can wait after. Or?
Yeah, you could do it later too. Okay, so now we're just gonna fit this. So this is on a taper. Yeah, so this type is a tapered. So basically all you have to do is force this down into the, right. You don't have to use wedges for this because basically it's on a taper. So the more you force this down and gravity, you're using it.
The way it's,
the gravity is actually keeping it tight, but it can loosen up on you.
It's working with you when you're axed in.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, if it's not tight enough, you're going to have to, you know, make it tight again. So, okay, we'll do that next.
Go up any?
Yeah, it moved a little. Yeah, it's still moving a little bit. So I'm gonna get a bigger hammer.
Okay. Look at that. It's starting to look like
anytime when it's damp, it's going to expand, and when the weather's dry, it's going to tend to contract a little bit.
Right.
So it's moist today, so the wood's probably got moisture content in it, which means it's a little expanded. So on a dry day, it might start getting loose.
Right. Doug found a bigger hammer than what he was using, but then he brought out, if this doesn't work, then he brought out something even bigger. How much do you think this thing weighs?
I don't know.
20?
20 maybe.
At least. All right, let's see if we can get this thing down more.
Yep, it's still moving. Yep, still a little movement. Just put a chamfer on the edges here. That'll avoid it to start splintering around there. So I'm just going to bevel the edge a little bit. It'll keep it a little longer from splitting on the corners.
So do you keep this on like the top, or do you cut it flush?
We could, except I would kind of wait for the weather to be real dry, drive it down more until you know that it's the driest, so the wood is going to be shrunk the most, and then drive it home, and then you could take it off and just leave a little bit out.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to drive it way down tight. And then
you
on a dry day, and you go, oh, it's loose.
Right.
So you lost all that area, and you can't replace it. So. And it doesn't hurt to have this hang out a little bit.
So we're going to heat this thing up and I guess put some beeswax on it. So this is what it looks like without the beeswax. This is just us using the wire wheel.
It's a mix of turpentine, beeswax, and linseed oil.
Yep. So this is what it looks like now. So let's see what the difference is once we heat it up. And see what it looks like after that. And it will protect it, like you said, from rust from the outside, and it'll keep like a shine on it or something. So let's get to it. So yeah, I was mentioning to Doug, like, I know he can do it. So we're just gonna sharpen these edges. So.
Right, so we're gonna use the belt sander, which I use to put bevels on knives and a lot of other things. And we're just gonna re-bevel this and clean it up so that it's more functional and actually sharp. So we're going to put a bevel on this, and a bevel, you got to consider, what is this going to be used for? If it were a knife, we'd have to make the bevel a certain way. If it was an axe, it would be a certain angle. The application here is like this end could be used to cut roots. So it's basically like an axe edge. And this could also be used for the same thing, and also just for going into the earth. So you don't want a real, you want an edge that's pretty much like the edge on an axe, so that when you're going into the earth, it's still gonna cut into the earth, or if you want to cut a root with it. So I'm going to try to get it back so that it's functional. As you heat up steel, the pores are open a little bit more, and it receives the beeswax, and it'll recede a little deeper into the pores of the steel, and it makes a better, longer lasting coating. This isn't a real long lasting coating for outside, but it does tend to put a surface on it so that the moisture and stuff doesn't rust the steel. I'm just going to use a propane torch. We just want to get this warm. If I was blacksmithing, it would already be hot, and I would just have to let it cool a little bit and then just put it on. And even this rusty color, which I don't know if you can see, when you get beeswax on that, it'll just disappear. It'll change the features of it as rust. You don't want to get this so hot that it changes the temper in it, because this is a German-made one, and I'm going to assume that it actually has a temper in it because this was all forged. So this is actually a forged one. I think some of the cheaper ones are probably cast. But we know this one's forged, really high quality metal. Yep, that's about the temperature we want. And again, we don't want to change any tempering that's already there on the edges. I'm not 100% sure this is tempered, but I don't want to alter it if it is. Well, that should be warm enough to take a coating. Here's just a little beeswax mixed with turpentine, a little bit of linseed oil, and yeah.
Is that how you buy it, or you mix it yourself, or how does that?
Oh, I mix this myself. A friend of mine has bees, and I got some beeswax from him. This particular wax, I think I got from I went to a show, and I think there was beekeepers there, and I bought a bunch of that from them.
What, just beeswax?
And then I just, yeah, right, just plain beeswax, which is primarily beeswax.
Mm.
And then if it's just an old blacksmithing recipe to add, I mean, you could just use beeswax, but if you use turpentine and a little linseed oil, it creates a nice mix for coating steel.
Yeah, that looks good already.
Okay. All right, looks like about it. Some of that rust will kind of just disappear.
And then just this side, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it smells good.
Okay.
You can't beat that.
Right, and then when it cools a little bit, just before it cools, you can wipe it a little bit with a cloth. But basically, that's it.
Awesome, Doug. That thing is cool. Wiping it down a little bit.
Just a little bit, yes. And that helps to kind of get it into the pores better.
Uh-huh.
And evenly distribute it. And it's not a permanent coating, but
so I guess eventually, if I don't want it to rust, because like the coating, because it will rust, right? Like eventually.
Yeah, I mean,
like
you can paint it if you really wanted to do something
to
preserve it. You would paint it.
Because that's originally what it was probably painted, and that's what keeps it from not rusting.
Right. I just like the look of
something older,
steel, and basically it's not going to rust even if it gets wet. If you dry it, it's pretty much, and keep it out of the rain, it's going to stay this way,
right?
Or not be really rusty.
Wow, check that out.
Pretty good. Now it's going to get put back into use after, I mean, I'm only guesstimating it's 50 years old, but it might not be that old, but it was in really bad condition and probably hasn't been used for a while. But look, we fixed it up with not too much work, and it's as good as new and better than what you can buy a lot of imports.
For sure. Look at this thing.
Right.
This thing was no good. Like I said, I paid probably less than $10. I can't really remember, but it wasn't usable. But now it's sharpened up. I mean,
yeah, and it's reviving something that some craftsman made and some craftsman company made 40, 50 years ago. And here we are. It was made so well, we just have to restore a little bit, and it's back being used. So.
Back being used instead of in the trash.
Yep.
Didn't even buy a new one. I think that's just so cool. I wonder how many people, like, I just think about like how many people have used it, and like,
yeah,
it's kind of weird.
Exactly. what its history is.
Yep. It's good as new. Yep. Thanks, Doug.
Okay.
All right, guys, so that's it. We did it. Well, I should say Doug did it. As you can see, this thing is awesome. We can finally use it. It's usable now. It's got the beeswax on it, so it's not gonna rust. So it was a pleasure. I appreciate it, Doug.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for helping me with this, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget, I'm gonna leave in the description Doug's YouTube. So he's gonna do a little bit of stuff. Maybe, like I said, he builds knives, he does jewelry, blacksmithing. So stay tuned for stuff like that he might post on there. So yeah, like I said, it'll be in the description. And if you like this video, just hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I appreciate everybody watching, and it helps, you know, if you subscribe and like, it really does help this small channel. And like I said, I really appreciate it. So thanks.
Use that Mattock.
Yes, sir.
Put it back in service.
We're gonna use it. We'll see you next time. Cool.